Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie Chase and I'm here reviewing AEW Dynamite from May 10th, featuring a steel cage match between Jon Moxley and Kenny Omega. Now before I give you my reaction to the show, please remember to subscribe to the channel. Yes, that really helps me, and most of you that watch aren't subscribed, so just hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, and then you'll always know when I drop a new video. Now, it's been a few weeks since I reviewed Dynamite on this channel, and that's mostly due to scheduling issues. I've been doing a lot of work recently and just hadn't had the time to sit down and make a video where I dissect Dynamite. But I also have to say that I kind of haven't liked Dynamite the past couple of weeks. I think it definitely started with the show they did in Pittsburgh. I really did not like that show at all. I think I disliked it in a way that you can only hate something where you can only hate a show that much if you truly love the product and want it to be great. And there was stuff on that Pittsburgh show that just left such a bad taste in my mouth that I just haven't. And the shows since that show have been like marginally better, but not kind of good enough to like wash the taste of that show out of my mouth. But this week's show I thought was actually really good, and it felt like we were back on form. And maybe that's because some of the stuff that I'd really been not liking wasn't as prominent on it, but we'll get into that. So this show started with Claudio Castelloni defeating Rey Fenix. I thought this was a really good match. What I really loved was that they just started with both guys in the ring. There were no entrances or anything. That kind of really made it feel back to like regular great Dynamite. We're just kicking off with action. You're going to get a great wrestling match. It's going to be awesome. Thought it was a really good performance by Claudio. The only thing I'd say, this was the Ring of Honor champion and the Ring of Honor tag team champion in a match, and we haven't seen Ring of Honor on the show recently. We haven't heard much about it. They've really been keeping that separate, so this just felt like it came out of nowhere. Like, why is this on Dynamite? I don't want to complain because it was such a good match, but there's still kind of that issue. I think like this week they were really like trying to pull out all the stops, and then they pull out something like this, which is kind of just for no reason. And why are we meant to care about the Ring of Honor title situation if we're just watching Dynamite? However, I gotta say that it was a really good match, and if you ignore the Ring of Honor stuff, then it's great. Then we had like our first big kind of news item of the night. We went backstage. We saw Tony Khan's office. He didn't have his security guard in front of it, but who was walking in but Miro, someone that we haven't seen in absolutely ages, someone that there's been a lot of talk about, questioning his kind of status with the company and what's been going on. And it looks like Miro is coming back, but more on all that later. We then saw the first of our video package on the 4 pillars. I'm going to talk about all the 4 pillars packages together as like a collective. My thoughts on the 4 pillars story. I don't think this storyline has gone very well at all or been very well executed. We know that MJF is great. I'm always blowing smoke up MJF. He's incredible promo, and I think that he's, AEW's biggest young asset by far. And I think that the 4 pillars thing, since it started, has really shown that the other 3 guys just aren't up to his level on the mic. There's been some really bad live segments, and I think it's very much dragged MJF down as well. I think that he needs to be presented in really big feuds to show off his stature. We've seen him feud with CM Punk, we've seen him feud with Chris Jericho, and I wanted something much better for him. Here it feels like he's being dragged down by his opponents. I think that Darby's usually been the best one. Sammy's definitely been the worst, but I've talked about this on this channel many times, that I think that Sammy is a guy that just gets really bad advice with how he wrestles and how he does promos. And I thought that this idea of doing the video packages was good because the live segments haven't worked between these guys. MJF's was very good. Darby Allin's good as well. There had been times in previous weeks where he's just come off heelish, which I just thought was weird. Jungle Boy is very hit and miss on the mic. He can actually come across as quite unlikable sometimes, just like with his delivery and the stuff he says. So I think he was much better in this setting. Sammy, he mostly had Jericho and Ty Conte talking in his video, which I think was probably a good idea. There's been just complete confusion over how they're presenting Sammy. I've said before, like the whole idea of him being this guy who, desperately worked so hard for opportunities and stuff just does not fit in the storyline, because he was brought in by Jericho and it's just always been at Jericho's side, to the point where he did try and go out on his own and it went so badly that he had to come back to Jericho. So none of that stuff has ever worked for me. I think Jericho did a pretty good job of making Sammy seem like a little bit better, but at the same time, he's still a heel in the heel faction. He was just not ready to be involved in this at all. Any of the character work they've done with Sammy, he's just was not in the place where he should have ever been anywhere near this feud, but he's one of the four pillars, so what can you do? And all this stuff they had been doing with Sammy and MJF was just awful. It made them both look so silly, but especially Sammy, this whole stuff about like a blank check and, oh, my car's full when it's not really. All of that stuff, I really detested. So I think this video package stuff was the best they could do. I think the four pillars are going to have a good match at Double or Nothing, but am I excited for it? No. I think that we needed a much bigger world title match for this show, and this is just not it. And it really hasn't been good, but this week kind of give them a pass. But should I? Because like they weren't actually there, so I guess it's easy to make something look a bit better when you can do like post-production and editing. But Four Pillars story has absolutely fallen flat for me. We then had a segment with FTR, Mark Briscoe, Jay Lethal, Satnam Singh, his crew. Basically, Mark Briscoe is going to be the special guest referee when Lethal and Jarrett take on FTR. Mark tried to make them all drink, but Sanjay spat this tequila or whatever it was in the eyes of Dax, who ended up accidentally pile driving Mark Briscoe. This was an okay angle, a little bit of fun. Always like Mark Briscoe. Can't say the same thing for Jay Lethal, but he's always on TV. I do think they're going to have a good match at the pay-per-view, and special guest referee stuff I usually don't like, but it's not something that AEW has overdone or anything like that, so I think it'd be pretty cool. Okay, then we had Renee backstage with Chris Jericho. Okay, I have to be honest about this. I have not liked this Adam Cole, Chris Jericho storyline at all. I really, really haven't liked it. I don't even want to go into all the reasons I haven't liked it, but especially since the Pittsburgh show, I've just been, I would put it up there as one of my least favorite things that AEW has ever done. And I think that they've probably done like a lot worse storylines, but because I like people involved in this, I think I'm seeing it as worse because I just don't want to see them do this. And I mean, last week, I actually skipped the opening match to watch that like at the end, because I just thought that there was a high chance that some of the stuff I'd see in this would like spoil my enjoyment of the rest of the show. And after watching that, I was like, yeah, I made the right choice. So I haven't liked the storyline at all. I don't think there's nothing at this point that they could do to like pull me back on the storyline. I honestly like, there's so much stuff in it that I'm just not on board with and don't want to see, that I almost think like the objective was to write a storyline that contains every trope that Stephanie just hates so we can stop her watching. That's really how I feel on this. I haven't liked it at all. So we just got a segment with Jericho here where he said that he has a restraining order against Adam Cole. I think that there was a lot of kind of tongue-in-cheek things maybe going on in here from all the reports that we've heard about CM Punk and him being brought back and not being on the same show. If that's what they were going for, I don't like that. I don't like anything to do with contracts, lawyers on wrestling TV, and they seem to be really obsessed with that in AEW. But of all the segments, or of all the weeks we've had of this Jericho Cole feud, this was like the least offensive week, and it's a low bar. But I didn't spend the rest of the show like upset over it. It was just fine. I was just like, oh, contract bullshit or whatever. And anyway, Roderick Strong challenged Jericho to a false count anywhere match next week. Jericho has Adam Cole banned, but Roddy has his own contract with the JS band. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I haven't liked the Cole Jericho feud. I really can't wait for it to end. And I don't know how many years it's been I've been watching Jericho on TV, but since WCW, and this is the first time that he's been involved in something that I've really, really disliked. Yeah, I think it just kind of brings out like both him and Cole's like worst instincts. I don't like it at all. I don't know. I feel like to explain it, I'd have to write like a really long essay that no one's gonna want to read. Anyway, we'll move on. Then Renee like teleported to be right in front of Tony's office again. She wanted to know what was going on with Miro, but instead we got Thunder Rosa turning up. And she said that she found out that it's a good night to talk to Pappy Khan. Really interesting. Like, let me say, if they want to make a show that is CM Punk, Miro, and Thunder Rosa on one show, I would very much watch that show. So well, let's just talk about the Tony Khan thing now. So next Wednesday, we're going to hear some big news. We're going to hear that news on TNT because the upfronts are happening. And then we're going to hear more about that on Dynamite. It looks like it's going to be the announcement of Collision, the Saturday show. Now, there's also talk that they've got this massive deal with Warner Brothers that could be like worth $1 billion. We don't know anything concrete about that, but it looks like Collision is coming. It seems that there's going to be a kind of soft roster split on it. The reports are we're going to have the people that want to work with CM Punk on one show and the people that don't want to work with CM Punk on another show. I do think that's a bad idea, because if we've seen anything from this Punk elite stuff, that it's like the pure tribalism that exists and people's parasocial relationships. So I think you're going to see people that are like really hardcore elite fans just not watching the show with Punk on it, like no matter who else is on it. And I just think that's really bad to kind of split your fan base in that way. They're already split with what's going on, but to actually make it a like 2D TV show split, I think it's just bad. However, I'm excited to hear about the new show. It's just so funny that they've weaved this into storylines. So we got Tony saying, oh, we've got so many wrestlers here, we could really do with a new show. Stay tuned. And it's funny. It's funny and odd to weave that, like the size of their roster, into like a storyline justification of getting another show. And also, I think by putting people like Miro and Thunder Rosa being the two people that you saw go and talk to Tony Khan, two people who have been reported to have backstage problems, you are also leaning into the shows being separate based on how many problems certain wrestlers cause. I don't know. It was interesting. It was weird. You can tell that Tony's got some important meetings coming up because he was very cleaned up for his little pre-tape bit. But big news next week, and I'll be excited next week to find out everything that it is and to talk about it. We then had Orange Cassidy defeat Daniel Garcia to retain the international title. Thought this match was awesome. I was really hoping it might be Danny's night. It's not. I still, if Danny ever leaves AEW, I will pester him forever for a shoot interview, because I will never get over the whole storyline between him, Jericho, and Danielson, and just what a terrible non-resolution that got, and just how much I think that totally screwed him. So anyway, justice for Daniel Garcia. Still won it. He's a great wrestler. He worked this match really well. I think that he did so good in it that I could see maybe a rematch happening, because the international championship is really perfect for Danny, and I'd love to see him to get that, and he can be that workhorse guy that wrestles every week, but not take away anything from Orange Cassidy, who's done an amazing job with this championship. Okay, we then had a video package from the Outcast. I think one thing that helped my enjoyment, another thing that helped my enjoyment of this show, you know, I was saying that the Cole Jericho bit was just left to that backstage interview with Jericho, and the Outcast here just got this little inset promo, and I think that made me like feel better about the show, because I really haven't liked what they've been doing. I've talked about that a lot in previous weeks. So I was just glad that we didn't have any spray paint nonsense on this show, and that was just kept to that this little video package. Next up, we had Christian Cage talking about Wardlow. This was my favorite bit of the show. Christian was absolutely amazing. He talked about daddy issues. He said that Wardlow's dad had passed, but he's not as famous as Jungle Boy's dad, so who cares? And he ended it by basically challenging Aaron Anderson's son, Brock Anderson. I love this. AEW is 100% a show for people with daddy issues. I've been saying that from the very beginning. Fathers play like fathers and deceased fathers have always played a very big role in AEW. I have daddy issues myself, so I particularly enjoy it. And Christian is such a great heel, and I just love him like leaning into all this stuff. And I love like how far he's willing to go. It was awesome. Christian's great. His fashion's on point. This is my favorite run of Christian's entire career. I've never been high on him, but this little run in AEW has just been awesome, and I loved this, and I want him to keep going around and calling out people with daddy issues, and hopefully he'll get to me one day. We then had Julia Hart defeating Anna Jay in a no holds barred match. I thought this was on the lower end of the women's Extreme Rules, no holds barred kind of matches. We've seen much better. Anna Jay is definitely better at doing these than she is wrestling like a normal match, because she's able to disguise her shortcomings in this type of environment. But I will say I was very happy to see Julia Hart wrestle not on Rampage, because the last 2 times I've seen her wrestle have been on Rampage, where we have to endure Jim Ross's misogynist commentary. So it was cool to like see her on Dynamite and not have to plug my ears. But they both put on a really good effort. Julia's really learning and improving. So yeah, I thought this was okay, not great, not memorable, especially considering some of the memorable women's matches that we've had. But just, fine for Dynamite. We then had the House of Black defeating Best Friends. This match was like a weird setup. The House of Black put out these rules that were really badly explained last week, and then the Best Friends got to pick their own like stipulation this week, and they just said they didn't want Julia Hart there, but Julia had just wrestled, so if you just seen that match, guys, she probably wasn't going to come out anyway. The match was fine. They did this weird lighting. I know a lot of people liked it. I'm not too keen on it. It just seems like bad WWE like stuff. It gave me Fiend vibes. But yeah, it was a good match. I think the House of Black are great trios champions. I keep the belt on them for a long time. It's just trying to find, challengers that make sense. But the Best Friends and Bandito, who I forgot to say was the person with the Best Friends, they were really great in this match. The rules that House of Black picked, though, did not benefit them at all. That whole rule stipulation thing seemed kind of pointless, but we still got a good match out of it. We then had a backstage bit where Orange Cassidy was knocked out, and Kyle Fletcher from Aussie Open came and lifted up Orange Cassidy's international championship. I gotta say, I think that was really weird. I love Aussie Open. I know those guys, and I just feel like since they've been on AEW, it's never been explained who they are. So I just can't imagine a kind of more casual, only watching AEW week to week type viewer actually knowing who this guy is when Cal Fletcher appears. But Cal Fletcher versus Orange Cassidy sounds like a very cool match. Then we had our main event, John Moxley versus Kenny Omega in a steel cage. This was fucking awesome. Main event Kenny Omega. This is all I've ever wanted. This is why I didn't want Kenny doing trios crap or anything like that. I want main event Kenny Omega. I want the guy that wrestled Ospreay at Wrestle Kingdom. I want the guy that wrestled Vikingo a couple of months ago, and I want this guy. So I thought this was awesome. The V-trigger through the cage that broke the cage, fucking incredible spot, a memorable spot, and this all just felt worthwhile. Like they were doing this steel cage match for a reason. These two guys hated each other, and I think this is great at building more intrigue to keep this feud going between the Elite and the Blackpool Combat Club. Of course, the big thing at the end was that Don Callis finally turned on Kenny Omega. I thought we were a few weeks or so removed from this, but no, it's happened now. I'm very glad to see Kenny away from Don. I think that's what we really needed to push him like over the edge of being like a true great babyface. It's always been bad that he's still hanging around with Don Callis even when he's babyface. So I'm glad about that decision. I don't know what they're going to do at Double or Nothing. I have to say the Double or Nothing card is looks like it's shaping up to be the weakest card they've ever put on pay-per-view. That's not me saying that I think the show will be bad. Wrestling's always great in AEW, but this card is so weak. I think they're probably going to do like Anarchy in the Arena like we saw last time, and judging by what we've seen in these feuds and how violent they are, that's going to be awesome. I really want Hangman to come back though. Please hurry back, Hangman Page. That's all for me. I hope you enjoyed this kind of quicker review of AEW Dynamite. Of course, make sure you're subscribed to my channel, turn on those notifications, go follow me on Twitter, Instagram, check out my OnlyFans, Patreon, all stuff like that. It's linked in the description, and I will catch you next time. Bye.